Tomiwa was the kind of man people couldn't ignore. Even if he wore a plain shirt and sat quietly, heads would still turn. He had this calm face that always looked serious but kind. His skin was smooth and deep brown, his beard was always well trimmed, and his eyes looked like they had seen everything but still hoped for something more. He was only 32, but people talked about him like he was a legend. Some called him the Golden Brain because of how smart he was. Others just called him Tomiwa the Billionaire. He had made his money from building apps that almost every phone in the country used. His company had offices in Lagos, London, and even Dubai. He had houses in Banana Island, cars that most people had only seen in music videos, and more money than he could ever finish. But even with all that, Tomiwa felt empty. Every morning, he woke up in his giant bedroom with tall windows and white curtains. The room was always quiet. Too quiet. His housekeepers greeted him with smiles, but none of them truly knew him. His drivers opened the car door and said, "Good morning, sir," but never asked how he was feeling. The people around him were always polite, always smiling. But deep down, Tomiwa knew they only stayed because of his money. Even the women he had dated only cared about the soft life. They loved the dinner dates, the weekend trips, the expensive gifts. But the moment he talked about his fears or shared his heart, they changed. They would either say he was overthinking, or they would pretend to care and still do whatever they wanted. The more this happened, the more Tomiwa felt like a stranger in his own world. One evening, he sat alone in his garden. It was quiet. The only sound was the water fountain in the middle. He leaned back on the bench and looked up at the sky. "Why is it so hard to find someone who just loves me?" he whispered. The stars didn't answer. The wind didn't move. The garden just stayed silent like it had no idea what he was talking about. He stood up and walked inside. As he passed the living room, he paused and looked at the huge TV. A documentary was playing. He didn't remember turning it on. On the screen, a poor man sat by the road with a sign that said, "Please help me." People walked past him like he didn't exist. Then a young girl came and gave him bread. She smiled, helped him up, and even wiped dirt off his shirt. Tomiwa stared at the screen. Something about the way the girl treated that man stuck with him. She didn't know who he was. She didn't care that he had nothing. She just helped him because she saw a person who needed help. He picked up the remote and paused the video. Then, like a light bulb went off in his mind, he whispered, "What if I became that man?" He dropped the remote and stood there, breathing slowly. What if I left all this behind? What if I go where no one knows me? No cars, no money, no bodyguards, just me, just me. The idea started growing in his head. What if he left Lagos, went to a smaller city, changed his name, wore old clothes, and pretended to be poor? What if he became someone that people normally ignored? If someone still cares about me then, he thought, then maybe that person is real. He didn't sleep that night. His mind was running like a car without brakes. By morning, he had already made a list of everything he needed. He would create a fake identity, rent a small room under a different name, and enroll in a university where no one knew him. He would pretend to be a student who had just survived a bike accident, with a bad leg that made him use a wheelchair. He sat at the dining table, eating toast he didn't even taste, when his sister Funmi walked in. "Tomiwa," she said, placing her handbag on the chair, "why are you looking like you didn't sleep?" He looked at her, then dropped his toast. "I want to disappear for a while." Funmi blinked. "Disappear? How?" "I want to leave all of this. Go to a new place. Pretend I'm not rich. Just be a normal guy. A poor guy. Maybe even a crippled one." Funmi stared at him. She didn't laugh. She didn't joke. She just said, "Are you okay?" "I'm serious, Funmi. I've had enough. I can't keep living like this. Everybody's fake. Even when I'm not trying to impress anybody, they still treat me like a wallet. But pretending to be poor. Tomiwa, that's extreme." He stood up, walked to the window, and folded his arms. "I want someone to see me. Not my name, not my company, not my account balance, just me." Funmi slowly pulled out a chair and sat. "Where will you go?" "Ibadan," he said. "It's close, but far enough. I'll enroll in a small university there as a new student. Nobody will recognize me. I'll wear old clothes, use a wheelchair, and live in a cheap hostel. Nobody will know the truth." Funmi rubbed her forehead. "Do you realize how dangerous this is? What if something happens? What if the wrong people find out? What if someone takes advantage of you?" Tomiwa turned to her. His eyes were sharp now, steady. "That's the point, Funmi. If someone still cares for me, even when they think I have nothing, then that person is real, and I need to know what that feels like." Funmi sighed and looked down. "You've always been stubborn." "I'm not changing now," he said with a small smile. Later that day, Tomiwa met with his personal lawyer and shared his plan. The man almost dropped his pen. "Sir, this sounds like a movie." "Well, life is starting to feel fake anyway," Tomiwa replied. "Might as well live in one." His security team begged him not to go alone. He promised to check in with one person every week, just in case. Then he packed one small bag, left all his cards behind, changed into worn clothes, and got into a bus heading to Ibadan. The ride was long and dusty. The man sitting beside him chewed gum loudly. Children at the back kept singing songs. But Tomiwa didn't mind. For the first time, he wasn't being stared at or asked for anything. He was just a normal man. When he got to Ibadan, he followed the plan. He had already arranged for a small room near the school campus. It was a plain room, bare floor, wooden bed, and a standing fan that made a funny sound. But, to Tomiwa, it was perfect. The next day he put on his new identity. He dressed in faded jeans, an oversized polo shirt, and a pair of old canvas shoes. He wore a cap low on his head and rolled himself out in a second-hand wheelchair he had bought online. The wheels squeaked as he moved, and the seat was rough, but it would do. He rolled himself slowly to the campus gate. Some students walked past without even noticing him. A few looked at him with pity. One guy pointed and whispered something to his friend, who laughed. Tomiwa kept his eyes low. He found a bench near the library and parked there. He opened a notebook and pretended to read, but his mind was busy. He was watching people, watching how they looked at him. No one said hello. No one stopped. Good, he thought. This is exactly what I came for. As the sun began to set, he pushed himself back to his room, his arms already sore. He wasn't used to this kind of life. Every part of him ached, but he smiled. "Let's see how long it takes to find someone real," he whispered. He went to bed early that night, listening to the sound of students talking outside and music playing from a nearby room. There were no guards, no chefs, no drivers, just Tomiwa, alone in the dark, feeling more alive than he had in years, and somewhere deep inside him, for the first time in a long while, he felt hope. The next morning, Tomiwa woke up early. The sun was just rising, casting soft light into his small room. He stretched his back slowly and sat up on the bed. His arms were still sore from pushing the wheelchair around yesterday. It wasn't easy. The road near the school had rough stones and broken paths, and the wheels of his chair had gotten stuck more than once. But he didn't complain. This was what he signed up for. He took a bath with cold water from a blue bucket dressed in the same faded jeans and a plain t-shirt, and put on his cap. Then he sat in his wheelchair, placed a notebook on his lap, and rolled out of the small compound. The gate man barely looked at him as he passed. That was good. The less people noticed him, the better. As he moved slowly along the campus road, he saw students in groups, chatting and laughing. Some had earphones in. Others were eating snacks or rushing to early classes. Nobody stopped to greet him. At a corner near the science building, he paused. There was a wide space where students usually sat to eat and rest. Tomiwa parked near one of the benches. The air smelled like fried plantain, pencil shavings, and dust. He opened his notebook and acted like he was drawing something, but his eyes stayed sharp. He was watching. Then it happened. 3 students walked into the open space. A tall guy in a red hoodie, a dark-skinned girl with shiny braids, and a short boy with glasses and loud slippers. The way they moved, everyone around them noticed. They laughed loudly, high-fived random people, and looked around like they owned the school. The tall guy in red turned to his friends and pointed toward Tomiwa. "See that guy," he said, loud enough for others to hear. "The one in the wheelchair. New student, Abi?" The girl with braids giggled. "He looks like a used crayon." The short one laughed harder than both of them. "More like a broken tire. Look at his shoe. I think that one entered fire." Tomiwa didn't flinch. He just stared at his book like he didn't hear them. But inside, his heart beat faster. The girl walked closer, hands on her hips. "Hello, Cripple," she said, tilting her head. "What's your name? Or should we just call you Flat Tire?" The short one laughed again and clapped. Tomiwa looked up slowly. His face was calm. "I have a name," he said. "Hin?" the tall guy asked, smiling wide. "Let's hear it now." "Tunde," Tomiwa said. It was the fake name he registered with. "Tunde the Tire Man," the short boy shouted. The girl leaned in and whispered loudly, "You know we're just playing, right?" But it didn't feel like play. They walked away laughing and shouting jokes. Some students nearby chuckled too. Tomiwa felt a wave of heat rush through his body, but he stayed quiet. He sat there for another hour, pretending to read. His hands clenched the notebook so hard it bent at the corners. This was harder than he thought. He had never been laughed at like this before. In his real life, people respected him, even feared him. But here, in this disguise, he was just another weak, poor student. No one saw him. And the ones who did only saw someone to laugh at. He rolled himself toward the cafeteria when his stomach started growling. He hadn't eaten breakfast. There was a small food stand by the gate. He stopped there and looked at the menu: rice, beans, yam, bread, and egg. He brought out a folded 500 naira note. As he waited in line, the same group of bullies walked past again. He wants to eat?" the girl said. "Hope they'll blend the food for him too." "I swear," the short one added, "he should drink pap and sleep." They laughed again. Tomiwa turned his wheelchair and moved away. He wasn't hungry anymore. He rolled to the back of the building and sat under a mango tree. The wind was soft, and a few leaves dropped from the branches above. He rested his head and closed his eyes. Then he heard footsteps. He opened his eyes and saw a girl standing nearby. She wore a clean but simple dress and carried a food flask in her hand. Her hair was packed into a ponytail, and her eyes looked kind, very kind. "Hi," she said softly. Tomiwa blinked. "Hi." "I saw what happened at the food stand," she continued. "Those guys are just mean." He looked away. "It's okay." She sat beside him, not too close, but close enough to show she wasn't afraid. "My name is Aisha," she said. "Tunde," he replied. She smiled. Don't mind them. They think being loud is the same thing as being important. Tomiwa looked at her for the first time properly. Her face wasn't just kind. It looked tired, like someone who had seen struggle but didn't let it change her heart. "Thanks," he said. She opened her food flask. The smell of jollof rice filled the air. "I cooked this morning. It's not plenty, but you can have some." Tomiwa hesitated. "You don't have to." "I want to," she said, cutting him off gently. He nodded slowly. She brought out a spoon and gave him half of the rice. He took it, feeling something strange in his chest. They ate in silence, but it wasn't awkward. It was calm, peaceful. When they finished, she stood up. "You want me to push you to the hostel?" she asked. He shook his head. "I can manage." "Okay, see you around then." As she walked away, Tomiwa watched her closely. There was something different about her. She didn't ask questions. She didn't stare. She just helped, quietly. That night he couldn't stop thinking about her. The next day the bullying got worse. The tall guy in red, Eve. The short one, Bio. The girl, Sandra. Now he knew their names. They started calling him Captain Useless. They laughed every time he passed by. One time, they even kicked his wheelchair slightly and pretended it was a joke. He was pushing himself past the faculty building when he saw them standing by the stairs. "Look who's back," Sandra said. "Mr. Broken Bones." "Did you oil your tires today?" Bio asked. They burst into laughter. Just as Tomiwa was about to pass them, a voice shouted, "Enough!" It was Aisha. She stormed toward them, eyes blazing. "Are you people okay at all? Is this how you treat new students? What if he was your brother?" "Eh-hen." Sandra folded her arms. "Who asked you to join the matter?" "I don't need permission," Aisha said. "You should all be ashamed." Eve smirked. "So you're his nurse now?" "I'd rather be a nurse than a fool," she shot back. Bayo raised his hand like he was about to say something, but Aisha stepped forward and glared at him. "Try me," she said. "Say one more word." They didn't. After a few seconds of silence, the trio walked away slowly, muttering under their breath. Aisha turned to Tomiwa and sighed. "You okay?" He nodded. "Thank you." She looked angry, but also sad. They don't know what people are going through. They just enjoy being wicked. Tomiwa looked at her for a long time. "Why did you do that?" "Because I hate bullies," she said simply, "and because you didn't deserve it." He smiled a little. Later that evening, Aisha walked him halfway to his hostel. "You really don't have anyone here?" she asked. "No," he replied. "What about family?" "They're far away." She nodded slowly. "You can sit with me sometimes. I stay close to the cafeteria. My mom is blind, so I help her in the mornings before class. I also sell snacks in the evening, so I'm always around." He looked surprised. "You do all that?" She chuckled. "Life no balance, my brother, but we move." Tomiwa laughed for the first time in days. They reached the junction, where their paths split. "Good night, Tunde," she said with a smile. "Good night, Aisha." As he rolled himself back to his room, Tomiwa felt something warm in his chest. For the first time since he arrived here, he didn't feel invisible. Someone had stood up for him. Someone had seen him. That night, as he lay on his thin mattress, he stared at the ceiling. He whispered to himself, "This girl, she's different." But deep inside, he also knew something else. The lie was growing bigger. And the longer he stayed in it, the harder it would be to tell the truth. Still, he wasn't ready to stop. Not yet. Not when he was finally seeing something real. Tomiwa couldn't sleep that night. He tossed and turned on the thin mattress, listening to the ceiling fan spin slowly above his head. Even though the room was quiet, His mind was loud. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Aisha's face. He remembered how she stood up to the bullies, how she shouted at them with fire in her eyes, how she gave him food when he had nothing. She didn't ask questions. She didn't even wait for him to explain. She just saw someone being mistreated and did something about it. He smiled to himself in the dark. "She's special," he whispered. The next day, Tomiwa woke up early again. He bathed quickly, dressed in his usual old clothes, and rolled himself outside. The streets were still quiet. A few students walked past with sleepy faces and heavy bags. He pushed his wheelchair slowly toward the cafeteria area. He wasn't hungry, but he wanted to see her. When he got there, he saw her from a distance. Aisha was setting up a small table near the corner. She brought out some puff-puffs and meat pies from a plastic cooler and placed them neatly on the table. Her dress was clean, but slightly faded. Her scarf was tied carefully around her head, and even though she looked tired, she smiled at every customer that stopped by. Tomiwa waited until there was no one else around, then rolled closer. "Good morning," he said. Aisha looked up and smiled. "You're early." "I wanted to help." She raised her eyebrow. "Help? You? In that wheelchair?" Tomiwa chuckled. "I can still move my hands." She laughed softly and handed him a small tray. "All right, Tunde, hold this. We'll see how good you are." For the next hour they worked side by side. Aisha called out prices, handled change, and packed snacks for students. Tomiwa passed trays, held paper bags, and made jokes that made her laugh. Even when his arms got tired, he didn't stop. Being beside her made the pain feel small. At one point, Aisha sat down and took a long breath. "You're actually helpful," she said. Tomiwa grinned. "I told you." "But why are you really here?" she asked, suddenly turning to look at him. "Most students in your condition would stay home, or at least get help. But you're just here, alone." Tomiwa felt his heart skip. He looked down at his lap. "It's a long story." Aisha nodded. "I have time." He was quiet for a moment. "I had an accident," he said finally. "Bike accident. My legs got badly hurt. I'm waiting to raise money for surgery." Aisha didn't blink. "Do you still feel pain?" "Sometimes," he said. "Mostly at night, but I'm used to it now." She reached into her bag and brought out a bottle of balm. "My mom uses this for her legs sometimes," she said. "Rub it. It helps." Tomiwa took it gently. "Thank you." They sat in silence for a while. Then she asked, "Where's your family?" "Far," he said quickly. "They don't know I'm here." Aisha gave him a look but didn't push. "You don't like talking about it?" He nodded. She looked at her table, then at the sky. "I get it. Some things are hard to say." Tomiwa watched her carefully. "What about you? You always look tired. Do you sleep at all?" Aisha smiled sadly. "Not really. My mom is blind. She needs help with almost everything. I cook, clean, sell snacks, and still try to attend classes. That's a lot." She shrugged. "That's life." He didn't know what to say. She made it sound so normal, but he could see the weight behind her smile. "Doesn't it get too hard?" he asked. "Every day," she said. "But I keep going. I don't have a choice." He looked at her again, not just her kind face, but the strength in her eyes. She wasn't just kind. She was brave. That evening they sat under the mango tree again, just like before. This time Tomiwa brought cold drinks and shared one with her. They talked about silly things: bad lecturers, broken chalkboards, the smell of the school toilets. They laughed so hard other students walking past stared at them. Aisha leaned back and sighed. I didn't think I'd ever laugh like this with anyone here." "Why not?" he asked. People don't really talk to me, she said. They think I'm strange. I don't dress flashy. I don't go to parties. I don't do makeup, and I always look stressed. They're missing out, Tomiwa said. She smiled. Maybe. The next few days felt different. Tomiwa started looking forward to mornings. He helped Aisha sell snacks, followed her to class sometimes, and sat with her under the mango tree every evening. Even when he was tired, even when the wheelchair made his arms hurt, he didn't care. Being with her made everything feel lighter, but not everyone was happy about it. Eve noticed. One afternoon, while Tomiwa and Aisha were packing up her table, Ife and his gang walked by. They stopped a few feet away, arms crossed. "Loving the wheelchair?" Sandra said loudly. Bio clapped. "Oh, so cute." Aisha froze. Tomiwa looked at them calmly. "You again?" Ife stepped forward. "So, this is how it is now, Abi? You think because you found one girl, you're now the king of the school?" "Leave us alone," Aisha said firmly. Ife smirked. "You fit better with him, Shah? He's broken, and you're poor." "Perfect match." Aisha dropped her tray with a loud bang. "Say that again," she said, eyes blazing. Eve laughed. "What? Did I lie?" Tomiwa pushed himself between them. "Let's go, Aisha." But Aisha didn't move. "You think money makes you better than people?" She snapped. "You think laughing at others makes you strong? One day, Aoife, one day you'll learn that everything can change, and you'll be the one sitting alone." Sandra rolled her eyes. "She's preaching now." Bio made a fake, crying face. Aisha grabbed her tray, turned, and walked away without another word. Tomiwa followed quickly. When they got far enough, she sat down under the tree and dropped the tray beside her. "I hate them," she said quietly. "I hate people like that." Tomiwa didn't say anything. He looked at her face, saw how angry and hurt she was, and wished he could tell her everything. That night, back in his room, Tomiwa stared at the ceiling again. But this time, his heart was heavier. He was falling for her. And he was lying to her. She thought he was poor. She thought he needed surgery. She thought he was a broken boy trying to survive. But none of it was true. He had more than enough money to buy the whole school. He could give her everything she needed in a second. But if he did, would she still trust him? Would she still laugh with him like this? The next morning he met her outside her house. It was a small building near the staff quarters. She looked surprised when she saw him. "Tunde? You came here?" "I wanted to see where you live," he said. She smiled. "Well, this is it. Nothing fancy." A woman's voice called from inside. "Aisha, who is that?" "My friend," she shouted back. She turned to him. "That's my mum. You can come in for a minute if you want." He nodded slowly. Inside, the room was neat but small. A table with 2 chairs, a shelf with a few books, and a bed with a folded blanket. Her mother sat on the bed wearing dark glasses. She was thin, with soft wrinkles and quiet hands. "Good morning, Ma," Tomiwa said. Good morning, my dear," the woman replied. "Aisha told me about you. The strong one with the wheelchair." He smiled. "She's always talking about you," her mom added. "I hope you're a good boy." "I try, Ma." Aisha laughed. "He's very helpful." They talked for a while. Her mother asked about his leg, about his studies, about his dreams. Tomiwa answered all the questions with care. When he left, Aisha walked him to the gate. "She likes you," she said. "That's good." They paused. "You know," she added, "you don't talk much about your dreams." Tomiwa looked at her. "Because they're confusing." "Try me." He took a deep breath. "I want to find someone who sees me, not what I have, not what I can give. Just me." She stared at him for a long moment. "Then you better stop hiding," she said quietly. "Because sometimes real people are closer than you think." Tomiwa didn't know what to say. They stood there in silence. Later that night, he sat alone in his room again, staring at the balm she gave him. His phone was hidden in a drawer, turned off for weeks. He hadn't called home. He hadn't checked messages. He hadn't even looked at his bank account. But now, he opened the drawer and took the phone out. He didn't turn it on. He just held it. He was scared. Because everything was getting real. Too real. And soon he'd have to choose, keep pretending, or tell her the truth. Tomiwa sat on his bed, holding his phone, still turned off. His fingers wrapped around it tightly, but he couldn't press the power button. It had been almost a month since he left his real life behind. No suits, no drivers, no board meetings, just faded shirts, long days in a wheelchair, and the one person who made it all feel worth it. Aisha. He thought about her every single day. The way she smiled, the way she shouted at bullies like a lion, the way she helped her blind mother and still found time to help him. She didn't see a cripple. She didn't see a problem. She just saw a person. But now Tomiwa felt like the biggest liar in the world. He wasn't poor. He wasn't helpless. And most of all, he wasn't telling her the truth. He placed the phone on the table and stood up slowly. His legs were strong. The lie about needing surgery was just part of the story he told to stay hidden. He only used the wheelchair to stay undercover. He could walk, run, even dance if he wanted. But if anyone found out, everything would fall apart, especially Aisha. He sat back down and held his head. "I can't keep doing this," he whispered. The next day started like every other. He met Aisha near the cafeteria, helped her sell snacks, and followed her to class. But something had changed. He didn't laugh as much. He didn't talk freely. He was quiet, thinking too hard. Aisha noticed. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah," he said quickly. "Just tired." But she didn't believe him. Later that evening, while they sat under the mango tree, she leaned closer. "Are you hiding something from me?" she asked softly. Tomiwa's heart jumped. He looked at her, eyes wide. "What do you mean?" "I don't know," she said. "You're different lately. Like your mind is far away. And the things you say sometimes, they sound like they're not the full truth." He didn't answer. She reached for his hand. "You can tell me. I won't judge you." Tomiwa opened his mouth, then closed it. "I will," he said. "Soon." Aisha pulled her hand back and nodded slowly. "Okay," she whispered. "But I hope you're not lying to me." He didn't sleep at all that night. His chest felt tight and his thoughts ran wild. Over and over he imagined what would happen if he told her everything. Would she cry? Would she slap him? Would she walk away and never come back? By morning he was still awake, staring at the ceiling. But what Tomiwa didn't know was that someone else had already found out. At the school gate, Eve stood with his phone in hand. His eyes were glued to the screen, and a smirk slowly grew on his face. "Guys," he said, turning to Sandra and Bayo. "I have something." Sandra raised her eyebrow. "What?" Eve zoomed in on the photo on his screen. "Last week I saw that crippled boy, Tunde, standing. Just for a second. He thought no one was watching, but I was." Bayo's mouth dropped. "He can walk?" "Not just walk," Ife said. "I followed him yesterday evening. He was walking inside his compound. No chair, no limp." Sandra gasped. "So he's faking it?" Eve nodded slowly. "I think we've been fooled. But we're going to make him pay." He leaned in and lowered his voice. There's going to be a big event next weekend. The school talent show. We'll expose him in front of the whole school. We'll drag him on stage and make him stand. Everyone will laugh at him. The fake cripple will become the real clown. Sandra clapped slowly. I love it. Bio giggled. Let's call it more Roast the Cripple. Eve smiled wide. Perfect. They didn't know someone had overheard them. Standing nearby, half hidden behind the snack stall, Aisha froze in place. Her heart pounded. Roast the Cripple? She felt like she couldn't breathe. Why would they do something so cruel? She waited until they walked off, then rushed to find Tomiwa. She found him near the faculty block reading alone. Tunde, she said out of breath. He looked up surprised. Aisha? She sat beside him, face full of worry. I heard them, she said. Ife, Sandra, Bio. They're planning something. Tomiwa's chest tightened. What do you mean? They know, she whispered. They saw you standing. He went completely still. They want to expose you at the talent show. On stage. In front of everyone. Tomiwa's mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. Aisha held his hand. Tell me the truth, can you walk? He looked at her. Really looked. She was scared, but not for herself. For him. He took a deep breath. Yes, he said. She pulled her hand away, eyes wide. So, you've been lying? I didn't mean to hurt you, he said quickly. I wasn't trying to fool you. I was just tired of fake people, of fake love. I needed to know if someone could care about me without money, without fame. Aisha stared at him in silence. My name is not Tunde, he continued. It's Tomiwa. Tomiwa Adedayo. She gasped. The tech billionaire? He nodded. I left everything. My houses, my cars, my name, just to see if someone like you, someone real, could love me. Aisha stood up slowly. You lied, she said, voice shaking, to everyone, but mostly to me. I know, he said, and I hate myself for it. But everything else, our talks, the laughter, the garden, your mother, I never lied about how I felt around you. Tears gathered in her eyes. You should have told me. I wanted to, he said, but I was scared. Scared that the moment you knew, everything would change. She looked away. Well, it has. She walked off. Tomiwa didn't follow her. He just sat there, alone again. The next day, the whole school buzzed with excitement. The talent show was all anyone could talk about. People wore colorful clothes. Music played from every corner, and the hall was decorated with balloons and lights. Tomiwa sat quietly at the back of the hall, dressed in a clean shirt and dark jeans. His wheelchair was gone. He stood tall, arms crossed, eyes sharp. He had made a decision. No more hiding. On stage, students performed songs, dances, and short plays. Laughter filled the room. But in the middle of the fun, Ife stepped onto the stage with a fake smile. Ladies and gentlemen, he said into the mic, let's take a moment to appreciate someone very special. Sandra and Bio joined him on stage. Someone who has fooled us all, Eve continued. Someone who has lied to your faces. Give it up for our next act, the cripple who walks. Some students laughed. Others looked confused. Then Eve pointed to the crowd. Tunde, come up here. Or should I say, Tomiwa. Gasps spread through the hall. People turned. Cameras came out. Students started whispering. But before Ife could say another word, Tomiwa was already walking down the aisle, slowly, calmly, eyes fixed on the stage. He climbed the steps one by one and took the mic from Ife's hand. The whole hall went silent. I came here as a stranger, Tomiwa said, his voice deep and clear. I didn't come to make fun of anyone. I didn't come to play games. I came to find the truth. He looked at the crowd. My name is Tomiwa Adedayo. Yes, I'm a billionaire. Yes, I can walk. And yes, I pretended to be poor, because I wanted to know how people treat others when they think no one is watching. Some students clapped slowly, others just stared. I met people who mocked me, laughed at me, kicked my chair and called me names, but I also met someone who didn't care about any of that. She saw me, just me, and she reminded me what real kindness looks like. He paused. He looked around the room, and then his eyes found Aisha, standing at the back. Her name is Aisha, and she's the strongest person I've ever met. The spotlight moved to her. She looked down, blinking, fast. Tomiwa continued, I'm not here to shame anyone. I'm just here to say this. How you treat people when you think they have nothing says everything about who you are. The hall stayed quiet for a long moment. Then someone stood up and clapped. Then another. And another. Soon, the whole room was on their feet, except Aoife, Sandra, and Bio. Their faces turned red as people walked away from them, shaking heads. Tomiwa stepped down from the stage and walked toward the exit. But before he could leave, a soft hand grabbed his arm. He turned. It was Aisha. She didn't say anything. Not at first. Then she whispered, You broke my heart, Tomiwa. He swallowed hard. But, she added, you also showed me something I've never seen before. She reached for his hand. I'm still angry, but I also understand. He nodded. I'll wait, for as long as it takes. She smiled. Don't wait too long. They walked out of the hall together, and for the first time since everything started, Tomiwa felt like himself again. Not the billionaire, not the cripple, just a man, finally being seen. Tomiwa and Aisha walked away from the school hall side by side. It was quiet outside. The noise and music from the talent show were still going on behind them, but out here, everything felt calm. A cool breeze blew past them as they reached a bench near the basketball court and sat down. They didn't say anything at first. Tomiwa looked down at his hands, unsure of what to say. Aisha sat with her arms folded, staring at the ground. After a while, she broke the silence. You know, she said softly, when I first met you, I thought you were someone who needed saving. I thought I was helping you. Tomiwa nodded slowly. You were. She looked at him. But you weren't broken. I was, he replied. Just not in the way you think. She tilted her head. Then tell me. All of it. No more hiding. He took a deep breath and began. I've always been surrounded by people, he said. People who smiled at me, worked for me, chased after me. But none of them really saw me. They saw money, fame, the cars, the power. One day, Tomiwa continued, I watched a video. A poor man on the street ignored by everyone, but one girl stopped and helped him. She didn't ask for anything, she just helped. And I thought, what if I became that man? What if I left everything and just became invisible? And you did, Aisha said. He nodded. I didn't come here looking for attention, I came looking for truth. She turned to him. And did you find it? He looked into her eyes. Yes, I found you. Aisha blinked, her voice soft. You hurt me. I know, he said quickly, and I'm sorry. Every day I wanted to tell you, but I was scared. Scared that the moment you knew who I was, it would all fall apart. It almost did. But you stayed. Aisha sighed. I don't know why. I couldn't walk away. They sat there for a moment longer. Then she said something that surprised him. My mom wants to see you. Tomiwa's eyebrows raised. Really? She heard everything. I told her last night. What did she say? She laughed, Aisha said, smiling. Then she said, That boy is either very wise or very foolish. Tomiwa laughed too. Maybe I'm both. Later that day, Tomiwa visited their house again. It felt different this time. Not because he was walking in without the wheelchair, but because he was walking in as himself. Aisha's mother sat on the edge of her bed, her hands folded in her lap, still wearing her dark glasses. When she heard his footsteps, she turned her face toward the door. "You're here," she said. "Yes, Ma," Tomiwa replied gently. She smiled. "Sit down. Let's talk." He pulled a chair and sat beside her. "You've caused quite a storm in this house," she said with a chuckle. "I'm sorry." No, don't be. I know why you did what you did. I may not agree with the method, but the reason... I understand." He looked at her with respect. "Thank you." She touched his hand gently. "But if you ever break my daughter's heart again, I will find you and deal with you myself." Tomiwa smiled. "I believe you, Ma." From the corner, Aisha laughed. "You see? I told you she's strong." They spent the evening talking, laughing, and eating the simple food Aisha had cooked. There was no gold, no marble floors, no fancy chefs, just love. Real love. And Tomiwa felt more at home here than he ever had in his mansion. The next morning, the entire school was buzzing with news. Pictures from the talent show had gone viral. Videos of Tomiwa's speech were all over social media. Some people were shocked. Others were angry. But most were amazed. Nobody could believe the cripple they laughed at was the billionaire they once saw on TV. At the school gate, Ife, Sandra, and Bayo walked quietly with their heads down. People avoided them now. The same students who used to laugh with them now crossed to the other side of the road. Whispers followed them wherever they went. Shameless bullies. They mock someone who could buy this whole school. They deserve it. Eve tried to smile and act normal, but the shame on his face was clear. The university released a statement later that day. The 3 bullies had been suspended for harassment and public embarrassment. They were asked to leave the school for the rest of the semester. Some said it was too harsh, others said it wasn't enough. Tomiwa didn't say anything. He wasn't interested in revenge. He had found what he came for. 1 week later, Aisha and her mother sat outside their home. A small bag sat on the ground beside them. Aisha held her mother's hand tightly. "Are you nervous?" Aisha asked. "No," her mother said. "Just thankful." A black car stopped in front of their house. The driver stepped out and opened the door. Tomiwa came out, dressed in a simple shirt and jeans. "You ready?" he asked. Aisha's mother nodded. They helped her into the car, and the driver shut the door gently. Tomiwa looked at Aisha. "She'll be fine." "I know." He smiled. "You don't seem surprised." "Because I knew you'd do it," she said. "I promised I'd help." "You kept your word." Tomiwa flew them to Lagos that evening. Aisha's mother was taken to one of the best eye clinics in the country. Doctors ran tests and confirmed what Tomiwa already knew. She was ready for the surgery. The procedure took 2 hours. Tomiwa and Aisha sat in the waiting room holding hands tightly. When the doctor finally came out, he smiled. "It went well. She's resting now. But by tomorrow morning she should be able to see." Aisha covered her mouth and started crying. Tomiwa pulled her close and whispered, "She's going to be okay." The next morning, Aisha's mother sat up in her hospital bed. A nurse slowly removed the bandages from her eyes. The room was quiet. "Try to open your eyes," the nurse said gently. She blinked. Once. Twice. Then again. Aisha held her breath, then suddenly her mother's lips parted. I can see light," she whispered. Aisha gasped. "Now look at your daughter," the nurse said, moving aside. Her mother turned her head slowly, and for the first time in years, she saw her child. Tears rolled down her cheeks. "You've grown so much," she said, reaching out. Aisha rushed into her arms, crying loudly. Tomiwa stood back, wiping his eyes silently. Her mother looked at him. "And you," she said, "you kept your word." "I told you I would," he replied. She smiled through her tears. "Thank you, my son." When they returned to school a week later, the campus was different. Students greeted Aisha with smiles and hugs. Lecturers nodded at Tomiwa with respect. Even the school gate man saluted when he passed. But Tomiwa didn't feel proud. He felt humble. Because everything he was looking for he had finally found. And it wasn't money. It was love. A month later, Tomiwa held a press conference in the school auditorium. Reporters came from everywhere. Cameras flashed. Students sat with their phones out. He stood on stage with Aisha by his side. "Today," he said, "I'm creating something new." Everyone leaned forward. "This school gave me more than education. It gave me clarity. It gave me truth. And it gave me her." He smiled at Aisha, who blushed. "That's why I'm starting the Aisha Adedeji Scholarship Foundation." Gasps filled the hall. "This foundation will help students who are kind, hardworking, and willing to help others, just like she helped me." Aisha looked at him, eyes wide. "You named it after me?" "Of course," he said. "You changed my life." The crowd stood and clapped. The noise was loud, but the moment was gentle, because it came from a place of truth. That evening, as the sun began to set, Tomiwa and Aisha stood under the same mango tree where they first ate puff puff together. The leaves danced in the wind, and the sky turned orange. "I never thought we'd end up here," Aisha said. "Me neither." She smiled. "So what now?" Tomiwa took her hands gently. "Now, we build something new, together." She looked into his eyes. "Even with all the lies?" "No more lies," he said. "Just me. Just you. The real us." She leaned her head on his shoulder. And in that quiet moment, with nothing but the sound of leaves and their hearts beating softly, they both knew. This was the beginning of something beautiful, something real. And it all started with a lie that led to the truth. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please leave a like and subscribe. Here is another interesting story to watch. Click to watch now.